Hey everyone, CW Music Reviews here. I'm CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new Clams Casino album, 32 Levels. Clams Casino is a beat maker, producer, and this is his long-awaited debut album. He's pretty much been around for quite a while now behind the scenes. He's done production for a lot of cloud rap out there, namely A$AP Rocky. He's done production for Lil B. I think he's occasionally done production for Vince Staples every now and again. He was pretty much one of the big names for cloud rap when it was starting to come up and be big. But now that that's kind of dying down, what with A$AP Rocky going into more acidic direction, Lil B's decline in popularity, he's kind of in a state of purgatory in a way. To me, he's gotta put out something that's not just gonna highlight the fact that he can make these cloud rap bangers, but also prove that he's versatile in other areas as well. He's gotta finally put out a project of his own, and that EP that he came out with a while back, along with like some beat mixtapes, isn't gonna cut it for me. So when I heard he finally was gonna drop a new album, I definitely was intrigued with that. I definitely was looking forward to that, especially given the initial singles to this album, namely the track Witness featuring Lil B. Very swaggerish track, definitely has a lot of character to it. Both Clams Casino and Lil B complement each other particularly well on this track, where Clams Casino creates this druggy and pretty hard-hitting atmosphere with these airy synths and like foreboding bass that comes on this track. I thought that was really cool, especially how Lil B was gliding over this track with a lot of charisma. So now that this album is out, I finally get a chance to listen to it, and what do I think? Well, I do like this thing quite a bit. It's definitely a favorite of mine for the month, but to me, this thing feels more like a resume, a much needed resume, than it does like an expansive project, especially given the shifts of style and genre on this album along with its brevity. This album is about 12 tracks in length, a little over 30 minutes in length. Your average track is going to be somewhere between the 2 and the 3 minute mark, with the longest track only reaching close to 5. So it's a brief little project, and I think in a way it kind of works to its detriment for me. I really did want something that was pretty expansive and pretty lengthy in a way. But regardless, given what he delivers and what his guests deliver on this album, the brevity isn't something I'm like completely irate about or anything of that nature. One thing I do have to note is, like I said, the amount of guests on this album. Normally when I see so many guest features on one album as it relates to an electronic artist, I start getting a little suspicious. There's maybe only 3, well realistically 2, without guest features, and they're the shortest tracks on the album. Like the track Skull, which while it is a hard-hitting cloud rap instrumental, it's a little too brief for its own good, and it's not really a memorable track for me. But the closing track Blast has quite a bit of build and progression to it, the way these female vocals are being sampled and layered to make kind of an off-kilter atmosphere as the bass hits are pretty foreboding and formidable. It really does close the album out particularly well. So what about the cuts that have guests on them? Well, for the most part, if not to its entirety, I think they really do complement what it is Clams Casino is doing particularly well. Like I mentioned, Lil B is on this album pretty much 4 times if you count the intro cut. You have A$AP Rocky teaming up with Lil B on the cut Be Somebody, and they both demonstrate quite a bit of capability and charisma on this track, especially over Clams Casino's really booming and just borderline abrasive bass and drum hits that go on, as well as his quintessential, really airy and psychedelic synth patterns that are on this track. There's actually quite a bit of that on this whole album. One thing I do have to notice you have to keep in mind is the fact that there are pretty much 2 sides of Clams Casino on this album. There's the cloud rap stuff, and then there's that really off-kilter dream pop stuff. So on the note of the former, you have Vince Staples on the track All Night, and Yeah, I really wished Vince demonstrated a lot more of this charisma on his debut album, Summertime '06. Admittedly, that album's grown on me a little bit. This groove on the instrumental side, the way it really goes hand in hand with Vince's forward thinking and really momentum gaining groove that his voice goes for, it's quite remarkable in terms of catchiness and just charisma overall. Especially the hook loops for a minute. All night, all night, all night, all night. And in the last bit of cloud rap, you have the track 32 Levels, which might actually be my favorite track on the whole record. It's pretty much a slow burner. It's a nice ballad-like rap thing that it goes for. The beat in particular is particularly slow. It's nice and just ethereal and foreboding in a way that I enjoy a lot. Lil B's verses, again, are pretty great on this track, as he pretty much talks about how being against hip-hop is a way of life that's not worth living or something of that nature. So what about this other side of Clams Casino, this dream pop side, this more PBR&B side that he seems to demonstrate? Let's get to the track Thanks to You featuring Sam Dew. He demonstrates quite a bit of vocal ability on this cut, and it goes off pretty much without a hitch. But on the instrumental side, there's these like quickly dissipating synth rushes that come in and out that are really off kilter. I do like that about the track. It's another slower cut that I like a lot. Then you get the track Back to You with Kelly's Zutraw, if I'm pronouncing her last name right. It starts off with some kind of string going off before it goes into this really dance-worthy and really upbeat groove that I like a lot. Her voice definitely adds to the catchiness and the upbeat atmosphere the track goes for, especially given how catchy the hook is. Always come back to you. Really the only cut that I'm not that crazy about is Into the Fire with Mickey Echo. It just seems more like a straightforward pop cut than anything else, and it really doesn't have much place on this whole record. Mickey Echo's vocals don't really do a whole lot for me. He's not a bad singer, he's actually a pretty decent singer. I just don't think that this specific style of vocal delivery was meant for something as strange as this record. But then you do get the track A Breath Away featuring Kalila, which has probably the best build on the whole record. It's maybe slightly borderline EDM-ish, but I think that works to its benefit than its detriment, especially given like these tropical drum hits that are on the bridge of this cut that I like a lot. And the last of which being Ghost in a Kiss, which has Samuel T. Herring of the Lonely Island fame. And while I do like his vocals on this cut, I think he might be digging into his lower register a little too much, especially given like the last tail end where it's kind of pitch shifted even further downward, and I don't know, it just seems really weird. I do like his voice a lot though on this cut. I also dig how dark and kind of menacing the instrumental is, especially how it just kind of fizzles off and breaks into like this piano ballad out of nowhere, and it definitely demonstrates quite a bit of versatility on Clams' part. So overall, I do dig this thing. I do think that this has a lot of potential for what another Clams Casino project could mean. I just wish that it was longer. I wish maybe some of the tracks were maybe mixed a little better, because the track Be Somebody, it does seem a little abrasive for its own good. And I do wish that maybe there aren't as many guest vocalists and guest appearances on the next album, since this seems to be Clams trying to prove to critics and producers and overall musicians that he's still got quite a few tricks up his sleeve, even if cloud rap isn't as prominent as it used to be. On that note, I'm definitely looking forward to what it is Clams will be capable of on the next project, seeing as how much I enjoy this one as well as his production on other people's cuts. If you're looking for a cool electronic record, if you're looking for a cool hip-hop-ish, dream pop, slightly a trip-hop type record, then yeah, do definitely check this thing out. It's not really going to be within one of my top 20 favorite albums of the year or anything like that, but it's definitely going to make it as a favorite of mine for this month, if not for the year. This album is a plus 2.2 out of plus 3. Yeah, I like this thing a lot. I do wish that it maybe was fleshed out a lot more, but given how good this thing is and given how well formulated all these tracks are, I'm not too mad at it. But if you give this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was the reason for that, and what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? This is CWD Music Reviews here, signing off.